Story number 1. Shadow Deep. Gulf of Mexico, near Louisiana. I still remember the day we decided to explore Shadow Deep, the abandoned oil rig that loomed ominously in the Gulf of Mexico near Louisiana. It was a project that promised adrenaline, mystery, and perhaps a glimpse into the forgotten corners of our industrial past. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the restless waves, our team of 5 stood on the deck of the research vessel, eyes fixed on the silhouette of the rig against the darkening sky. My name is Jake Thompson, and I was the team leader for this expedition. We were a diverse group: engineers, marine biologists, and a few thrill seekers like myself. Shadow Deep had been deserted for over 2 decades, ever since a catastrophic storm had rendered it inoperable. Rumors swirled about strange occurrences and inexplicable phenomena that plagued the rig in its final days. Naturally, these tales only fueled our curiosity. As night descended, the rig transformed into a behemoth of shadows and steel, its derelict structure creaking and groaning with the movement of the sea. Our mission was simple: document the state of the rig, gather any remaining equipment, and uncover the truth behind its abandonment. Equipped with flashlights, cameras, and a portable generator, we prepared to board Shadow Deep. The approach was tense, each step towards the rig feeling heavier than the last. The deck was slick with algae and rust, the remnants of machinery scattered haphazardly. As we secured ourselves, a faint blue light caught my eye, emanating from the far end of the deck. It was an eerie glow, pulsating softly against the darkness, as if the rig itself was alive and breathing. "Did you guys see that?" I asked, pointing towards the source of the light. Megan, our marine biologist, nodded cautiously. "Yeah, it looks like it's coming from the main control room. Maybe the generator is still partially functional." We made our way through the maze of corridors, the blue light guiding our path like a spectral beacon. The air grew colder as we approached the control room, the silence broken only by the distant sound of waves crashing against the rig's foundation. When we entered the room, the sight that greeted us was both mesmerizing and unsettling. There, hanging from the ceiling, was a grand chandelier, its crystals shimmering with the same unnatural blue light. Despite the absence of any power source, the chandelier cast a ghostly glow, illuminating the room with an otherworldly ambience. I reached out to touch one of the crystals, but Megan held me back, her expression wary. "This is definitely not normal," she whispered. "There's no electrical connection. How is this light still on?" Before I could respond, the light began to flicker, casting dancing shadows across the room. My heart raced as I noticed them, pale, translucent faces pressed against the windows, staring intently at us. They were featureless, their expressions frozen in silent torment, yet their eyes seemed to follow our every move. "What the hell are those?" I muttered, stepping closer to get a better look. One of the team members, Tom, tried to rationalize it. "Maybe it's some kind of old projection system. We should check the equipment." As Tom moved towards a dusty console, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The air grew thick with an oppressive energy, and the whispers began to rise, a cacophony of indistinct voices echoing through the space. I felt a chill run down my spine, an instinctive urge to leave the room immediately. "Jake, we need to get out of here," Megan insisted, her voice trembling. "This place feels wrong." But curiosity held me in place. "No, we need to understand what's happening. There has to be an explanation." Just as I was about to follow Megan's lead, a loud crash echoed through the room. The chandelier swayed violently, sending crystals clattering to the floor. In that moment, one of the pale faces seemed to distort, its features twisting into a grotesque mask of anguish. I turned just in time to see Tom disappear, swallowed by the shadows that now seemed to creep along the walls like dark tendrils. "Megan, Tom!" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. I rushed towards the spot where he had vanished, but the corridor ahead was blocked by an invisible force. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling my mind with fear and confusion. Suddenly, a figure materialized before me, a mirror image of Tom, but with hollow eyes and a menacing aura. "Leave now," the apparition hissed, its voice a twisted echo of the real Tom's timbre. "Before it's too late." I stumbled back, my heart pounding as the room began to spin. The chandelier's light intensified, and the faces in the windows pressed closer, their silent screams echoing in my ears. Desperate to escape, I grabbed Megan's arm, pulling her towards the exit. "Run, Jake! Don't look back," she screamed, her face pale with fear. We fled the control room, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of Shadow Deep as the blue light chased us like a spectral guardian. The rig seemed to come alive around us, the walls shifting and corridors elongating, trapping us in an endless maze of steel and shadows. The whispers morphed into anguished cries, their desperation clawing at my sanity. As we reached the deck, the blue light enveloped us, and the faces from the windows loomed over us, their expressions now filled with a vengeful rage. The chandelier above flickered once more, casting a blinding light that disoriented us. In that moment of chaos, Megan tripped and fell, her screams echoing through the night. I turned to help her, but before I could reach her, a cold hand grasped my shoulder, pulling me back into the darkness. The last thing I saw was the hollow-eyed figure of Tom, his form dissolving into the shadows as the rig seemed to swallow me whole. I awoke hours later, the morning sun casting a warm glow over the calm waters of the Gulf. My head throbbed with pain, and my body felt heavy with exhaustion. Disoriented, I tried to move, but my limbs wouldn't respond. Panic surged through me as I realized I was still on the deck of Shadow Deep, the rig now eerily silent and devoid of the blue light that had haunted me all night. "Megan?" I called out weakly, my voice barely a whisper. "Tom?" There was no response, only the gentle lapping of waves against the hull. I struggled to my feet, my vision blurry as I searched for any sign of my teammates. The control room was empty, the chandelier dark and lifeless. The faces in the windows were gone, leaving only the empty expanse of the night sky. Desperate to find Megan, I wandered the deck, each step echoing in the vast emptiness. The whispers had faded, replaced by an oppressive silence that pressed down on me. Hours passed, and the realization that I was alone with the remnants of a haunted past settled over me like a shroud. Just as I was about to succumb to despair, a faint cry echoed through the night. Following the sound, I stumbled upon a small storage room, the door ajar. Inside, Megan sat huddled in a corner, her eyes wide with terror. "Jake," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "They took Tom. They said we have to leave before it's too late." Before I could respond, the door slammed shut, and the blue light surged back to life, filling the room with its unnatural glow. The faces from the windows reappeared, their silent screams now morphing into visible anguish. The chandelier above flickered violently, casting sinister shadows that danced across the walls. "We can't stay," Megan pleaded, clutching my arm tightly. "They're angry. They want us gone." With no other choice, we raced back to the main deck, the rig now pulsating with an otherworldly energy. The blue light chased us relentlessly, the faces from the windows transforming into vengeful specters that reached out with ghostly hands. The whispers returned, their voices a haunting melody of despair and rage. As we reached the exit, the front door swung open with a force that sent us sprawling onto the deck. The storm had returned, the wind howling and the waves crashing with renewed intensity. Lightning illuminated the night sky, revealing the full extent of the rig's spectral inhabitants, ghostly figures moving with a purpose that defied logic. "We need to leave, now!" I shouted over the storm, pulling Megan towards the safety of the research vessel. But the path back was blocked by the apparitions, their hollow eyes following our every move, their presence a constant reminder of the rig's tragic history. Just as hope seemed lost, a bolt of lightning struck the rig, the blue light extinguishing in an instant. The storm subsided as quickly as it had arisen, leaving behind a calm sea and a quiet night. Exhausted and shaken, Megan and I made our way back to the vessel, the oppressive energy of Shadow Deep finally lifted. In the days that followed, the incident at Shadow Deep became a haunting memory, a tale we shared with skepticism and fear. The rig remained abandoned, its dark secrets concealed beneath layers of steel and sorrow. But the experience left an indelible mark on both of us, a reminder of the thin veil that separates the living from the dead, and the restless spirits that linger in the shadows of forgotten places. Years later, I still find myself drawn to the stories of haunted sites and unexplained phenomena, my encounter with Shadow Deep a pivotal moment in my understanding of the supernatural. Megan and I maintained our friendship, our shared experience forging a bond that transcended the ordinary. We often wondered about Tom and the other spirits trapped within the rig, hoping that they had finally found the peace they sought. One quiet evening, as I sat in my home overlooking the calm waters of the Gulf, my phone buzzed with a message from Megan. Sometimes, the shadows have a way of finding us. Stay safe. A chill ran down my spine as I stared at the screen, the memory of that stormy night resurfacing in vivid detail. Shadow Deep had been more than just an abandoned oil rig. It had been a gateway to a world where the past refused to stay buried, where the echoes of lost souls lingered in the darkness, waiting to be remembered and understood. And so, as the sun set over the horizon, casting long shadows across the water, I couldn't help but feel a sense of respect for the unseen forces that shape our lives. The Shadow Deep had taught me that some mysteries are best left unexplored, and some secrets should remain hidden beneath the waves, guarded by the restless spirits who refuse to fade into the abyss. But for those who seek the truth, who dare to venture into the unknown, the shadows will always be there, silent, watching, and waiting for the unwary to disturb their eternal vigil. Story number 2. Deep Echo. North Pacific Ocean, offshore Alaska. I never believed in ghosts. Growing up in the bustling heart of Seattle, surrounded by the relentless hum of city life, the idea of restless spirits haunting abandoned structures seemed like nothing more than a subplot in a horror novel. Yet, here I was, standing on the deck of the research vessel Endurance, staring out at the ominous silhouette of Deep Echo, a colossal oil rig abandoned a decade ago, swallowed by the unforgiving expanse of the North Pacific Ocean near Alaska. My name is Jake Parker, and I'm the lead marine engineer for Oceanic Ventures, a company specializing in underwater exploration and offshore projects. The assignment was straightforward: assemble a new expedition team to investigate the phenomena that led to Deep Echo's sudden abandonment. Years ago, the original crew had reported hearing strange voices emanating from the ocean floor, voices that seemed to call out in desperation and fear. Shortly after, a massive storm had ravaged the rig, forcing an abrupt evacuation. No one returned, and the rig was left to rust and decay under the relentless assault of the sea. As the Endurance approached the rig, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the water. The structure loomed before us, a skeletal giant of steel and concrete, its once majestic presence now marred by corrosion and neglect. The deck was eerily silent, the only sounds being the creaking of the hull and the distant roar of waves crashing against the base of the rig. Our team consisted of 5 members: me, Megan Collins, a seasoned geologist with a knack for uncovering hidden truths; Tom Harris, a tech specialist responsible for our recording and monitoring equipment; Lisa Nguyen, a marine biologist whose curiosity about the unknown matched her expertise; and Rebecca Lee, a paranormal investigator brought on board to document any supernatural occurrences. As we prepared to disembark, Megan approached me, her eyes reflecting a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Jake, do you think the stories are true? About the voices and the disappearances?" I nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. "We're here to find out. Whatever happened to the original crew, we need to uncover the truth." We donned our gear and boarded the helicopter that would take us to the rig's helipad. The journey was swift, the helicopter slicing through the darkening sky as we made our final approach. Landing on the helipad was smoother than expected, the ground surprisingly stable despite years of abandonment. Stepping onto the rig, the air was thick with the scent of saltwater and rust. The structure was a maze of corridors and chambers, each one telling a story of a once thriving hub now frozen in time. We set up our equipment in the main control room, a cavernous space with a massive window overlooking the ocean. Despite the absence of power, an old chandelier hung above, its crystals dusty but intact. Tom began setting up the recording devices, placing microphones strategically around the room. "If there are any voices, we should be able to capture them," he said, his voice steady despite the eerie atmosphere. As night fell, the rig was plunged into darkness, the only light coming from our portable lamps and the faint glow of the moon reflecting off the water. We settled into our designated areas, the silence of the night amplifying every creak and groan of the structure. Around midnight, Megan was the first to speak. "Guys, do you hear that?" The room fell silent, our breaths held in anticipation. A faint whisper echoed through the corridors, indistinct at first but growing clearer. It sounded like multiple voices, chanting softly in a language I couldn't recognize. "Enhance the audio," Tom instructed, adjusting his equipment. The whispers became more pronounced, their urgency palpable. It was as if the voices were trying to communicate something important, something that couldn't be conveyed through mere words. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the temperature in the room plummeted. Our breaths became visible, and an oppressive darkness seemed to press down on us. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw shadows dancing along the walls, shifting and contorting in unnatural ways. Rebecca, standing near the entrance, began to document the phenomena. "This is incredible. The energy here is off the charts." I nodded, though a sense of unease gnawed at me. "Stay focused. We need to remain professional." As the night wore on, the voices grew louder, their whispers turning into anguished cries. The recordings were capturing every sound, but there was an underlying sorrow that resonated through the air. It was a haunting reminder of the lives that had been lost here, of the souls trapped within the confines of deep echo. Around 3 a.m., the most unsettling event occurred. Lisa, our marine biologist, was documenting the lower decks when she froze, her eyes wide with terror. "Guys, you need to see this," she called out, her voice shaking. We rushed to her location, following the sound of her panicked breathing. She led us to a storage chamber, the door slightly ajar. Inside, the room was empty, save for the remnants of old equipment and tools. But what caught our attention was the discovery of deep scratches etched into the metal walls, leading towards a sealed door. "These scratches, they're fresh. Like something or someone tried to get out," Megan observed, her voice tinged with fear. Tom approached the door, his hand hovering over the handle. "We need to open it. There could be valuable data or something else." Rebecca hesitated, sensing the malevolent energy emanating from behind the door. "Maybe we should leave it alone. Whatever is in there might not want us here." But Tom was insistent, driven by a mix of curiosity and determination. With a deep breath, he pushed the door open, revealing a hidden chamber bathed in an eerie blue light. The source of the light was a chandelier hanging from the ceiling, its crystals glowing without any visible power source. The room was impeccably clean, as if untouched by time, but the presence of the blue light was unsettling. As we stepped inside, the blue light began to flicker, casting long, distorted shadows across the room. From the walls, ghostly faces began to materialize, their features pale and lifeless, staring blankly at us. The faces seemed to move with us, following our every step with their hollow eyes. "What the hell?" Megan whispered, her voice barely audible over the growing tension. Suddenly, the blue light intensified, and the ghostly faces began to chant in unison, their voices a haunting melody that filled the room with sorrow and despair. The temperature dropped further, and the air was thick with an unspoken fear. I felt an invisible force pressing down on me, making it difficult to breathe. "We need to leave now," Rebecca urged, her eyes wide with panic. "This is beyond our understanding." But as we turned to leave, the door slammed shut, trapping us inside. The ghostly faces began to move towards us, their forms flickering with a sinister energy. Tom reached out, trying to push them back, but his efforts were in vain. The spirits swirled around us, their presence overwhelming, their cries echoing through the chamber. In a desperate attempt to break free, I grabbed Megan's arm and pulled her towards the exit, but Rebecca stopped us, her voice shaking. "We can't leave them trapped here. We have to help them." Megan looked torn, but the fear in her eyes was unmistakable. "But how? We're just a team of researchers. What can we do?" Rebecca stepped forward, her determination unwavering. "We need to understand what they want. If we can help them find peace, maybe they'll let us go." Taking a deep breath, I stepped towards the center of the room, the ghostly faces parting to allow me passage. "What do you need from us?" The chanting intensified, the voices converging into a singular, mournful plea. "Remember us. Acknowledge our pain. Release our souls." I nodded, feeling a surge of empathy for the restless spirits. "We'll do whatever it takes. Tell us what we need to do." Suddenly, the room shifted, the walls melting away to reveal the dark depths of the ocean below. We were standing on the edge of the rig, peering into the abyss, the blue light now emanating from the ocean floor. The voices continued to echo, their urgency now palpable. "We are bound by our work," one of the voices intoned, a figure standing at the edge, its form wavering like a mirage. "Our souls are tethered to this place, unable to move on until our story is told." Rebecca began documenting the experience, her camera capturing every moment. We need to gather more information. If we can uncover what happened here, maybe we can help. With renewed purpose, we delved deeper into the history of Deep Echo, uncovering reports of unexplained phenomena and tragic accidents that plagued the rig before its abandonment. It became clear that the original crew had been driven to madness by the relentless pressures of their work, their sanity eroded by the isolation and the mysterious voices that seemed to emanate from the ocean itself. As we pieced together the story, the spirit's presence grew stronger, their cries now a chorus of despair that filled the air. The rig seemed to come alive around us, the blue light pulsating with each revelation, as if feeding off our discoveries. We need to perform a ritual to honor their memories and help them find peace, Rebecca suggested, her eyes reflecting the weight of our mission. Together, we prepared the ritual, gathering mementos and symbols of the original crew's lives. As we began the ceremony, the spirits gathered around us, their forms becoming more defined, their presence a blend of sorrow and hope. Spirits of Deep Echo, I began, my voice steady despite the fear gripping my heart. We honor your memories and acknowledge the pain you endured. We seek to help you find peace and release you from this place. The blue light swirled around us, the ghostly faces now smiling softly, their anguish easing as the ritual progressed. The voices, once filled with despair, now carried a note of gratitude and relief. Thank you, the chorus echoed, the spirits beginning to fade into the light. We can finally move on. With those final words, the oppressive energy lifted, the chamber bathed in a warm, comforting glow. The spirits had found the peace they sought, their souls released from the confines of Deep Echo. The room returned to its silent state, the blue light now a gentle, fading glow. We stood there, the weight of our actions settling over us like a heavy blanket. The rig, once a place of fear and tragedy, now felt lighter, as if the ghosts of the past had finally been laid to rest. As dawn broke over the horizon, we made our way back to the Endurance, the first rays of sunlight reflecting off the calm waters of the Gulf. The journey back was quiet, each of us lost in our thoughts, the haunting memories of Deep Echo etched into our minds. Back on land, we debriefed with our company, sharing our findings and the truth behind the mysterious phenomena that had plagued the rig. The story of Deep Echo became a testament to the importance of understanding and honoring the past, of recognizing the toll that relentless work can take on the human spirit. Years later, the legacy of our expedition lived on, a cautionary tale for those who dared to push the boundaries of exploration without regard for the unseen forces that lie beneath the surface. And as I reflect on that harrowing experience, I'm reminded of the fragile line between the living and the dead, and the enduring power of empathy and remembrance in bridging that divide. Deep Echo remains a silent sentinel in the Gulf of Mexico, its secrets now known and its restless spirits at peace. But sometimes, on quiet nights, I catch a faint whisper carried on the wind, a lingering echo of a story that was finally heard, a reminder that some mysteries are worth uncovering, even if the cost is unimaginable. Story number 3. Blackwater. Gulf of Mexico, near Louisiana. I never thought I'd be haunted by our workplace. As a seasoned marine engineer, I'd seen my fair share of offshore rigs, each with their own quirks and challenges. But nothing could have prepared me for Blackwater, the oil rig that stood ominously in the Gulf of Mexico near Louisiana, shrouded in mystery and dark legends. My name is Mike Anderson, and I've worked on rigs all over the world. When the job offer from Blackwater came through, I was intrigued. The rig was renowned for its cutting-edge technology and impressive production rates. The contract promised lucrative pay and the chance to lead a maintenance team on a project that would push the boundaries of what we thought possible. Little did I know, Blackwater harbored secrets that would forever change my perception of the sea and the people who dared to tame its depths. Blackwater was a massive structure, a behemoth of steel and concrete rising from the ocean floor. It loomed over the water like a sentinel, its lights piercing the night and its massive derricks swaying with the relentless currents. The rig had been operational for nearly 2 decades, but a decade ago, a catastrophic explosion had forced its abrupt abandonment. Official reports cited a mechanical failure, but whispers among the offshore community hinted at something far more sinister. The explosion had claimed the lives of several crew members, including a man named Tom Harris, a dedicated driller known for his unwavering work ethic and his seemingly endless energy. Tom was beloved by everyone on the rig, a brother in arms who could be relied upon in the most challenging circumstances. But on that fateful night, Tom never made it back to the surface. His disappearance remained a mystery, and his spirit was said to linger, forever bound to Blackwater. When my team and I arrived at Blackwater, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The previous crew had evacuated quickly, leaving behind a skeleton staff tasked with assessing and repairing the damage from the explosion. The deck was eerily silent, the only sounds being the distant calls of seabirds and the rhythmic pounding of waves against the rig's base. Our team consisted of 5 members: me, Ana Rodriguez, a skilled electrician with a keen eye for detail, Jake Thompson, a seasoned mechanic who could fix anything from a leaky valve to a broken derrick, Sarah Lee, a data analyst responsible for monitoring the rig's performance, and Rebecca Harris, Tom's sister, who had joined us to ensure her brother's memory was honored and to provide support to the team. From the moment we set foot on Blackwater, strange things began to happen. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation, lights flickered in the dead of night, and an oppressive sense of being watched settled over us. Jake laughed it off, blaming the rig's age and the lingering effects of the explosion. But Anna and Sarah were visibly unnerved, and Rebecca's grief-stricken eyes revealed the depth of her loss. One night, as a violent storm rolled in from the Gulf, the true horror of Blackwater revealed itself. We were working in the control room, monitoring the rig systems and ensuring everything was running smoothly. The wind howled outside, and the sea roared like a living beast, battering the rig with relentless fury. Suddenly, the power flickered, plunging the room into darkness. Emergency lights kicked in, casting long, distorted shadows across the space. "Everything okay here?" I asked, my voice echoing in the confined room. Anna, clutching her flashlight, nodded hesitantly. "Just a temporary blackout. Probably a power surge." But as the minutes passed, we realized something was terribly wrong. The emergency systems failed to stabilize the power, and the room remained cloaked in darkness. The temperature dropped sharply, our breaths visible in the frigid air. Then, out of the silence, came a faint sound, a soft, mournful whisper that seemed to emanate from the very walls. "Why are you here?" We froze, exchanging uneasy glances. Jake grabbed his flashlight, shining it around the room, but there was no one in sight. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, echoing through the control room like a broken record. "Leave now," the voice intoned, tinged with desperation and fear. Rebecca clutched her brother's locket, her knuckles white with tension. "Tom, is it you?" Before anyone could respond, the temperature plummeted further, and the lights flickered again, revealing the ghostly apparition of Tom Harris standing at the far end of the room. His face was contorted in a silent scream, his eyes empty voids that seemed to pierce through our souls. "Jake," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm outside. "You shouldn't have come back." Jake stepped forward, trying to maintain his composure. "Tom, we're here to help. We need to fix the rig and make it safe." Tom's apparition began to fade, the edges of his form wavering like smoke in the wind. "You can't fix what's broken. Leave before it's too late." As quickly as he appeared, Tom vanished, leaving us in a state of shock and disbelief. The room slowly warmed, the oppressive chill lifting, and the power flickered back to life. But the damage had been done. We were now acutely aware that Blackwater was more than just an abandoned rig. It was a place haunted by the restless spirit of a man who had given his life to his work. The next day, we delved into the rig's history, uncovering old logs and personal diaries left behind by the original crew. We learned that the explosion had been no accident. There had been a cover-up, a desperate attempt to hide the true cause of the disaster. The crew had discovered a flaw in the drilling equipment, a flaw that had been deliberately ignored by the higher-ups to meet production targets. The stress and overwork had taken their toll, pushing Tom and others to their breaking points. Determined to honor Tom's memory and put an end to the haunting, we decided to confront the rig's dark past head-on. We conducted a series of rituals and offered prayers to help Tom and the other lost souls find peace. Rebecca, with her deep connection to her brother, led the efforts, her presence a beacon of hope amidst the lingering darkness. One night, as we gathered in the control room once more, the air was thick with anticipation. We lit candles, their flickering flames casting a warm glow across the room. Anna set up speakers to play calming music, hoping to create a peaceful environment for the spirits. Jake and Sarah worked together to stabilize the rig systems, while Rebecca knelt in the center of the room, her eyes closed in silent prayer. "Tom," she began softly, her voice steady and full of conviction. "We're here to help you find peace. We acknowledge the sacrifices you made and the pain you endured. Please, let go and move on." As she spoke, the room began to hum with energy, the oppressive presence lifting as if responding to her words. The temperature warmed, the chill replaced by a comforting warmth. The lights brightened, casting away the shadows that had long plagued the rig. Suddenly, the ghostly apparition of Tom Harris appeared once more, his form more defined and peaceful. "Thank you," he whispered, a genuine smile gracing his face. "We can finally rest." With those final words, Tom's spirit faded, the room bathed in a serene glow that signaled the end of his torment. The rig seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, the dark energy dissipating as peace settled over Blackwater. In the days that followed, the atmosphere on the rig transformed. The strange occurrences ceased, the oppressive sense of being watched lifted, and a renewed sense of purpose filled the air. We continued our work with a newfound respect for the rig's haunted history, ensuring that the lessons learned from our experience would never be forgotten. As we prepared to leave Blackwater, Rebecca approached me, her eyes shining with gratitude. "We did it, Mike. We helped him find peace." I nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment and closure. "Yeah, we did. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it." As the Endurance sailed away from the abandoned rig, the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon, I couldn't help but reflect on the events that had unfolded. Blackwater had been more than just a workplace. It had been a place where the living and the dead intersected, where the echoes of the past lingered in the present. We had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, our bond strengthened by the shared experience. Years later, the story of our expedition became a legend in the offshore community, a cautionary tale about the dangers of overwork and the importance of honoring those who have sacrificed so much. Blackwater remained a silent sentinel in the Gulf of Mexico, its secrets now buried beneath layers of steel and memory. But the legacy of that haunted night lived on, a reminder that some places hold onto their past a little too tightly, waiting for someone to listen and help them find peace. And so, whenever I find myself gazing out over the vast expanse of the Gulf, I remember the lights of Blackwater, the ghostly face of Tom Harris, and the eternal echoes of a man who gave everything to his work. It's a haunting memory that serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of empathy, even in the most isolated and forgotten places. Story number 4. Silent Deep. Offshore California. I never intended to become a horror story narrator. My passion was always storytelling through film, capturing the raw, unfiltered moments of life and nature. But nothing could have prepared me for what we discovered on the abandoned oil rig known as Silent Deep, floating aimlessly off the rugged coast of California. My name is Ethan Carter, and I lead a small documentary crew dedicated to uncovering forgotten places and the stories they hold. Our latest project was to explore Silent Deep, a once-thriving oil rig that had been deserted for nearly 15 years. The rig had been the site of a tragic accident, an explosion that claimed the lives of several workers and left the structure to decay under the relentless assault of the Pacific Ocean. We arrived on the rig at dusk, the sky painted in hues of orange and purple as the sun dipped below the horizon. The rig stood tall and imposing, its metal frame rusted and worn from years of neglect. The waves crashed against its base with a ferocity that mirrored the turmoil we felt inside. As we stepped onto the deck, the eerie silence enveloped us, broken only by the distant call of seabirds and the occasional creak of the aging structure. Our team consisted of 5 members: me, Ethan Carter, the director and cinematographer, Laura Mitchell, our dedicated sound engineer, Jake Thompson, the camera operator with an eye for detail, Mia Rodriguez, our research specialist, and Sarah Bennett, our editor and assistant. Together, we were determined to uncover the secrets of Silent Deep and bring its story to light. The first few hours were uneventful. We toured the main deck, documenting the remnants of the rig's operational days, rusted machinery, scattered tools, and personal belongings left behind in a hurry. The atmosphere was thick with the weight of abandonment, each step echoing through the empty spaces like a mournful lament. As night fell, we set up our base in the control room, a cramped space cluttered with outdated equipment and faded maps. The room was dominated by a massive window that offered a panoramic view of the dark ocean, the only source of light coming from our portable lamps and the dim glow of the moon reflecting off the water. Laura began setting up the audio equipment, determined to capture any unusual sounds. If there are any lingering voices or sounds from the accident, we should be able to pick them up, she explained, adjusting the sensitivity of her microphones. Jake positioned his camera strategically, ensuring every corner of the control room was covered. Mia and Sarah busied themselves with organizing our notes and cross-referencing historical data about the rig's last days of operation. I focused on filming, the beam of my flashlight casting long shadows across the room as I moved to capture every detail. It was around midnight when we first heard it, a faint, crackling noise emanating from the direction of the old radio station we'd identified earlier in our exploration. "Do you guys hear that?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. We all paused, listening intently. The sound was like static, interspersed with indistinct murmurs that seemed to be repeating over and over. Laura's eyes widened as she leaned closer to her equipment. "It's definitely coming from the radio. Let's check it out." We made our way to the radio station, a small, enclosed area nestled in one of the lower sections of the rig. The door creaked open, revealing an old, dusty radio set perched on a workbench. The device was surprisingly intact, its dials and knobs still functional despite the years of exposure to saltwater and wind. I approached the radio cautiously, feeling a strange sense of foreboding settle over me. "Let's see if we can get a clearer signal," I suggested, adjusting the frequency settings. As I tinkered with the controls, the static intensified, and the murmurs grew louder, more distinct. Suddenly, a voice broke through the noise, clear and desperate. "Help us, we're trapped, please." My heart raced as I glanced at my team, their expressions mirroring my fear. Laura quickly began recording the audio, capturing every word. "What did you say?" Mia asked, her voice shaky. "Help us, we're trapped, please," I repeated, the words echoing in my mind. Jake pointed his camera at the radio, the flickering light highlighting the dust particles dancing in the air. "This is incredible. It sounds like someone's trying to communicate with us." We decided to stay close to the radio, hoping to catch more of the message. Hours passed, and the voice continued to plead for help, the desperation in its tone growing with each repetition. It was clear that the voices were remnants of the crew who had perished in the explosion, their souls trapped within the rig's decaying framework. As the night deepened, the intensity of the voices increased, the messages becoming more urgent. "We can't escape. Help us find peace. Don't let us be forgotten." A sense of melancholy washed over us, the realization that we were bearing witness to the lingering spirits of those who had lost their lives in pursuit of the rig's operations. The weight of their sorrow pressed down on us, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the consequences of our actions. Around 3 a.m., just as we were considering calling it a night, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The temperature plummeted, our breaths visible in the icy air as the rig seemed to come alive with a malevolent energy. The lights flickered violently, casting erratic shadows that danced along the walls. Suddenly, the radio erupted in a cacophony of screams and pleas, the static drowning out all other sounds. The rig began to shake violently, the metal groaning under the strain. Alarms blared, and the emergency lights cast an eerie red hue over the entire structure. "Something's wrong," Laura shouted, her voice cracking with panic. "The rig's stability is compromised." We scrambled to secure ourselves, trying to make sense of the chaos unfolding around us. The whispers and cries from the radio merged into a deafening roar, the voices of the trapped souls reaching a crescendo of agony and fear. In the midst of the turmoil, we noticed a figure emerging from the shadows, a tall man in a work suit, his face obscured by darkness. As he approached, the air grew thick with an oppressive energy, the very essence of his presence sending shivers down my spine. "Leave this place," he intoned, his voice a hollow echo that resonated deep within us. "Don't interfere with our rest." I took a step back, my mind racing to comprehend the situation. "Who are you? What do you want from us?" The figure remained silent, his gaze fixed on us with an intensity that seemed to pierce through our very souls. The rig continued to tremble, the structural integrity on the verge of collapse. "Please," one of the voices from the radio begged, cutting through the chaos. "We need your help, don't leave us here." Rebecca, always the rational one, tried to steady her nerves. "We need to get out of here now. The rig is falling apart." But as we turned to flee, the entire structure groaned under the strain, the shaking intensifying to the point where we struggled to maintain our footing. The figure advanced, his form becoming more defined, his face still obscured by shadows. Desperation set in as we realized the rig was no longer a passive relic of the past, but a living entity, driven by the restless spirits of those who had been lost. The voices grew louder, their pleas merging with the structural sounds of the rig's collapse, creating a symphony of horror that overwhelmed our senses. "Help us find peace," the voices cried, their desperation palpable. "Don't let us be forgotten." In a final, frantic effort, we managed to reach the main deck, the door slamming shut behind us as the rig began to crumble around us. The storm that had been building earlier now raged with full fury, the waves crashing against the rig with a vengeance that mirrored the chaos within. We dove for the helicopter, the metal floor beneath us buckling and tearing as the rig succumbed to the relentless assault of the ocean. The air was thick with smoke and debris, the once majestic structure now reduced to a twisted, shattered heap of metal and sorrow. As we lifted off, the helicopter swayed violently, the rig disappearing beneath the waves as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. The radio's final message echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the souls we had encountered and the lessons learned from their tragic fate. "We can't leave them forgotten," I whispered, the weight of their sorrow heavy on my heart. Back on the research vessel, the atmosphere was tense with the aftermath of our harrowing experience. The crew huddled together, trying to process the night's events and the undeniable presence of the trapped spirits. The rig story had been etched into our memories, a chilling testament to the unseen forces that linger beneath the surface of our world. In the days that followed, we compiled our footage and audio recordings, the evidence of our encounter clear and irrefutable. The documentary we produced became a haunting narrative of loss, tragedy, and the enduring power of memory. It served as a reminder of the sacrifices made in the pursuit of progress and the restless spirits that remain when their stories go untold. Years later, the story of Silent Deep became a legend in its own right, a cautionary tale for those who dared to explore the depths of the ocean and the mysteries it held. The voices of the trapped souls continued to resonate, their echoes a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of honoring those who had been lost. Sometimes, when I gaze out over the calm waters of the Gulf, I can still hear their whispers carried on the wind, a gentle, mournful reminder that some stories never truly end and some spirits never truly rest. And as long as their voices echo through the depths, I know that Silent Deep will remain a place of haunting beauty, forever etched into the annals of the unknown. Story number 5. Crimson Tide. Caribbean Sea, offshore Puerto Rico. I never believed in ghosts. Growing up in Miami, surrounded by sunlit beaches and the vibrant energy of the Caribbean, I thought the only spirits haunting us were those of long-dead pirates and sailors, their tales exaggerated by the salty breeze and flickering tiki torches. But nothing could have prepared me for what we encountered at the abandoned oil rig known ominously as Crimson Tide. My name is Alex Martinez, and I've been a professional diver for over a decade. My job took me to some of the most breathtaking and, occasionally, unsettling underwater locations. But Crimson Tide was different. There was something inherently wrong about that rig, something that made the water around it feel heavier, the shadows deeper. The Crimson Tide had once been a bustling hub of activity in the Caribbean, its derricks piercing the azure waters as they extracted black gold from the ocean's depths. But 15 years ago, a catastrophic explosion had silenced its operations forever. The official reports blamed a malfunctioning valve, but whispers among the offshore community suggested darker truths, stories of unseen forces and restless spirits that refused to let the rig rest in peace. When our documentary team decided to explore Crimson Tide, I was both excited and apprehensive. We were a group of 5, me, the lead diver and narrator, Maria Lopez, our fearless camerawoman, Jake Thompson, the tech specialist responsible for our underwater equipment, Sarah Bennett, the marine biologist fascinated by the rig's ecosystem, and Rebecca Harris, our sound engineer tasked with capturing every whisper from the deep. As we approached the rig on a clear morning, the sun glinted off the water, creating a shimmering path that led us to our destination. The structure loomed before us, its skeletal frame a stark contrast to the vibrant life teeming beneath the waves. Coral had claimed parts of the rig, turning it into an artificial reef, yet the remnants of machinery and rusted pipes told a story of abandonment and decay. "All right, team," I called out, securing my tank. "Let's make this quick. We don't want to be here too long." We donned our gear and descended into the depths, the water growing colder as we approached crimson tide. The silence was profound, broken only by the rhythmic bubbling of our regulators and the occasional distant call of a manta ray. The rig stood eerily still, its dark form swaying gently with the currents. As we began our exploration, Maria focused her camera on the intricate network of pipes and platforms, capturing the beauty and desolation intertwined. Jake monitored our equipment, ensuring our lights and cameras were functioning perfectly. Sarah took samples of the marine life, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. Rebecca adjusted her microphones, determined to capture any unusual sounds that might be lurking in the depths. "Check out this area," Jake called, pointing to a section of the rig where the pipes twisted into a maze-like formation. "Could be some interesting footage here." We moved closer, the beams of our lights penetrating the darkness, revealing forgotten machinery and debris scattered across the ocean floor. It was in this section that we first heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible sound, like whispers carried by the current. "Did you guys hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice tinged with concern. I strained to listen, but all I could hear was the gentle lapping of water against metal. "Probably just the sound of the sea," I replied, though my unease was growing. As we ventured deeper into the rig, the whispers became more distinct, forming fragmented words that seemed to echo through the water. "Help us leave." Rebecca's eyes widened as she adjusted her recording equipment. "This is incredible. These sounds are unlike anything I've ever heard." Maria's camera picked up the movements around us, shadows darting between the pipes, fleeting glimpses of figures in the periphery of our vision. "Something's not right here," she murmured, her grip tightening on her camera. Suddenly, a sharp noise shattered the silence, a loud crash that reverberated through the water, sending a chill down my spine. We all froze, our eyes darting towards the source of the sound. In the distance, near one of the main platforms, we saw a figure moving erratically, its form indistinct and ghostly. "Jake, get the cameras rolling. We need to document this," I instructed, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my insides. Jake activated his underwater drone, guiding it towards the figure. As the drone approached, the figure became clearer, a diver in a heavy suit, his movements frantic and desperate. But what caught our attention was his face, or rather, the absence of it. Where his face should have been was a void, a blackened mask that seemed to absorb the surrounding light. "Is that a person?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with horror. Before we could react, the figure turned towards us, its empty eyes fixing on our team with an intensity that sent shivers down our spines. Without warning, the rig began to shake violently, the structure groaning under an unseen force. Alarms blared through our communication systems, the sound echoing through the water like a death knell. "We need to get out of here, now," Maria shouted, her voice cracking with panic. But as we turned to ascend, the path back seemed to vanish, replaced by an endless labyrinth of pipes and platforms. The whispers intensified, merging into a cacophony of desperate pleas and tormented cries. "We're trapped," Jake said, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "Something's holding us here." Rebecca's microphone picked up the screams, agonizing wails that echoed through the rig, mingling with the rhythmic pounding of the ocean. The water around us grew colder, the darkness pressing in from all sides, suffocating us with its relentless grip. Suddenly, one of our team members, Jake, began to struggle, his movements erratic as if an invisible force was pulling him away. "Jake! Hold on!" I cried, reaching out to grab him, but my hand passed through his motionless form. He let out a strangled scream before vanishing into the shadows, leaving behind only his floating, crushed helmet, tangled in the debris. "No! Jake!" Sarah cried, tears streaming down her face. "We need to save him." Rebecca tried to maintain her composure, her hands shaking as she adjusted her sound equipment. "The voices, they're trying to communicate. Maybe we can find a way to free him." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "We need to follow the voices. They're leading us somewhere." With no other options, we pressed forward, the rig's corridors morphing into an ever-changing maze. The whispers guided us deeper into the heart of the rig, the voices growing louder and more insistent with each step. As we reached the central hub of the rig, the source of the voices became clear, a large, dilapidated room that once served as the control center. The walls were covered in faded blueprints and maps, the remnants of a bygone era of industrial ambition. In the center of the room stood an old radio set, its antennae rusted and frayed, yet the device remained eerily functional. Rebecca approached the radio cautiously, her fingers trembling as she adjusted the dial. "Let's see if we can communicate with them," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. The radio crackled to life, the static giving way to a clear, haunting voice. "Please, help us, we're trapped." I felt a surge of empathy for the lost souls bound to this forsaken structure. "We're here to help. What do you need us to do?" The voice on the radio responded, its tone desperate and pleading. "Release us, set us free." Suddenly, the rig began to convulse, the entire structure groaning under the strain of the unleashed energy. The water around us churned, the waves crashing against the rig with newfound fury. The voices intensified, their cries blending with the sounds of destruction as the rig threatened to collapse. "We have to perform a ritual," Rebecca said, her eyes closed in concentration. "Something to honor their memories and set their spirits free." We gathered around the radio, following Rebecca's lead as she began to chant in a language that felt both ancient and deeply personal. The words resonated through the room, their power tangible as the spirit's presence intensified. The chandelier above us began to glow with an ethereal light, the crystals shimmering as if infused with the souls of the departed. The walls of the rig seemed to pulse with energy, the very fabric of reality bending under the weight of our collective will. As we continued the ritual, the voices began to harmonize, their anguish giving way to a sense of peace. The rig's shaking subsided, the oppressive darkness lifting as the spirits found the closure they had long sought. "Thank you," the voices echoed, their tones now filled with gratitude and relief. "We can finally rest." With those final words, the rig stood silent once more, the eerie blue light fading into the darkness. The path back to our ascent reappeared, the labyrinth of pipes and platforms now a stable and navigable route. We made our way back to the surface, the weight of what we had experienced settling over us like a heavy fog. As we emerged from the water, the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon, we knew that Silent Deep had been transformed from a place of haunting sorrow into a sanctuary of peace. The crimson tide had revealed its darkest secrets, and in doing so, had granted us a glimpse into the unspoken tragedies that lie beneath the surface. Our documentary captured not only the beauty and danger of the abandoned rig, but also the enduring power of compassion and the human spirit to confront and overcome the unknown. Years later, Silent Deep remains the symbol of the mysteries that the ocean holds, a testament to the souls who continue to seek peace beneath the waves. And as I reflect on that harrowing night, I carry with me the lessons learned from the depths of the Caribbean, a reminder that sometimes, the greatest horrors are not those that lurk in the shadows, but those that seek to be heard and understood in the silent depths of the sea.